The Moneyline News Hour, weeknight 6:30 Eastern on CNN.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Hello and welcome to our viewers around the world. I'm Juanita Phillips in London. Returning now to our breaking news this hour, at least 25 hostages that were being held in the Armenian parliament since yesterday have been released. They had been taken hostage by gunmen who stormed the parliament building in the country's capital, Yerevan, killing the country's prime minister and at least 7 other people. Well, here now to update us on the situation is Mike Hanna, who's been following the situation from Moscow. Mike.
Well, Juanita, the hostage crisis over, all the hostages safely released, 25 of them, we understand. The gunmen taken into custody, where they are being interrogated at present. Their safety has been guaranteed by the country's president and guaranteed to their right to a fair trial. For the latest situation, let's now go to journalist Julia Hakobian in the capital, Yerevan. What can you tell us, Julia?
I would tell that based on the current evidence and facts, this clearly seems to be nothing more than pure terrorism.
Have the gunmen made any political demands at any point, Julia?
Their demands were nothing more than to be heard by the public about their complaints regarding the politics of the country and asking for a fair trial.
We understand that at one stage they were permitted to give a broadcast to the nation. Is that correct? Did they in fact make a television broadcast to the Armenian people?
Sorry, I didn't catch the question.
Did the gunmen, did they at any stage broadcast a message to the Armenian people?
Yes, their statement was read by the Armenian national TV.
And what was the basis of that statement, Julia?
The base of the statement was their complaints regarding the politics of the country.
Thank you very much. That's journalist Julia Hakobian in the capital, Yerevan. To confirm, the hostage crisis is over. 25 hostages released safely. The gunmen are taken into custody. They are being interrogated at present. Their right to a fair trial has been guaranteed by the country's president. So too has been guaranteed their personal safety. Juanita.
And Mike, just tell us what's going to be happening over the next few days in terms of the country's security, and also with regard to what President Kacharyan's going to do in naming a replacement.
Well, the situation at present is that the country has remained remarkably stable in the past 24 hours of crisis, or the past 14 hours of crisis. The Armenian government said from the beginning that it was in control, that the only area of the crisis was within the National Assembly building where the gunmen were holding the hostages. There has been a heavy security and army presence, police and army present on the streets of the capital, Yerevan. However, all reports from the capital and from the country as a whole indicate peace and calm, although understandably the country's 3.5 million people shocked by the shooting of their senior political leaders. The next political step for the president, Robert Kacharyan, is to appoint a new prime minister, one to replace Vazgen Sarkisian, who was reportedly the first person killed by the gunmen when they burst into the parliamentary chamber. That new prime minister would then have to appoint some ministers to replace those who were also killed in the event, and then once again to pull the legislative process together. Among those killed was the parliamentary speaker, a very important constitutional role. He will have to be replaced. The deputy speaker was killed. He will have to be replaced. These are all constitutional steps that need to be taken, but the first position at the moment, the first step that needs to be taken is the appointment of a new prime minister, because without that, the rest of the constitutional modes cannot be put into place. Underway in Armenia, a massive legislative reform program, which has obviously been interrupted by the shooting. The task of the president is to get that program underway again, to get the draft legislation that was on the National Assembly table once again being discussed by speakers. Incidentally, one of those the laws being discussed, a draft legislation being discussed, was a new penal code in terms of which the death penalty in Armenia would be outlawed. This is the type of thing that the president has now got to do: appoint a new prime minister, get the legislative program going again, and prevent the gunmen and the tragedy of the last few hours from disrupting what has been a remarkably vibrant political reform program in Armenia. Juanita.
Thanks very much for that, Mike. A short time ago, I spoke to Vaha Gabrielian. He's the president's press secretary. Here's what he had to say about the crisis.
Well, I can only confirm the fact that the gunmen have now been apprehended. They have turned in their guns. They are arrested and taken to custody, to police custody. And fortunately, all the rest of the hostages were released.
Well, joining me now to discuss the situation in Armenia is Anna Mateyeva. She's research fellow at the Royal Institute of International Affairs here in London. Well, the most extraordinary 24 hours in Armenia. Were there any indications that a crisis like this was going to happen?
No, it is a shock, as the correspondent from Moscow just said. The whole Armenian people are completely taken by surprise. But we have to say that this is a very volatile region with a highly turbulent political culture. Assassinations do happen. There have been two attempts to kill President Shevardnadze of Georgia. A number of very senior Armenian politicians have been assassinated, some of them in their own offices. Nobody has ever been caught. So this is intact, this dramatic event, but it is intact with what the politics is like there.
From what you've been hearing and reading, what do you think the motives of the gunmen were?
The motives were very much to hit an individual who was believed to have not only a lot of formal power, but also quite substantive informal power deriving from his connections with the power structures and control of valuable economic assets. He was somebody who was regarded as too powerful for the system to contain, and also somebody who got too rich too quickly and was coming across as a symbol of the troubles Armenia has with crime, corruption, and polarization.
Well, in fact, I was going to raise that. The leader of the gunmen made a statement and he referred to failing democracy, corruption, and poverty. Is there something in what he was saying? Is that the situation in Armenia?
Yes, it is something, but we have to say that the Armenian government in the last 2-3 years have been putting measures in place to combat these problems. The situation is still fairly dire, but there have been a genuine commitment to put things right. But it is not very easy when there are powerful vested interests put in this process. So if there are very powerful key individuals who are being seen as obstructing the road to life which would look more normal and more orderly, this is very much a sensation within ordinary people.
Well, speaking of key individuals, 8 key political individuals shot dead. How is Robert Kacharian going to deal with this?
Well, Robert Kacharian, not implying that he is behind what has happened, but he might actually use it to capitalize on this development. First, if he moves quickly and decisively, and he has a capacity to do it, he will come across as somebody who can address the country in need. The other thing that he might bring his own loyalists in the government who will help him with the reform program he is very determined to put in place.
Now, at the moment, we've been speaking to plenty of people in Yerevan. They say that the situation on the streets is calm. The Armenian people are not out on the street. There are police and soldiers. Everything is relatively calm. Do you think that situation will continue?
Yes, it doesn't seem that Vazgen Sarkisyan has been a popular, charismatic figure somebody who will be incredibly mourned and regretted by the people. So, yes, if President managed to move quickly and decisively, we are not looking into major turmoil in the country.
All right. Anna Matejeva, thank you very much. I'll ask you just to stand by. CNN USA is going to leave us now. For the rest of our viewers, we'll be back after this short break with more of CNN This Morning. Stay with us.
Gravity, the force that holds the Earth in orbit around the sun, also holds the car to the road around a hairpin turn. But in extreme conditions, even gravity can use help. The reassuring performance of the RL with Vehicle Stability Assist from Acura.
In our fast-paced world, it's important to take a moment to relax. Immerse yourself in one of the world's most inspiring musical experiences. Introducing the most relaxing classical album in the world ever. A listening experience perfectly suited to your world. Surround yourself with the tranquility and classical grandeur of Bach, Beethoven, and Mozart. This once-in-a-lifetime treasury is performed by today's greatest classical artists. The most relaxing classical album in the world ever. Over 2.5 hours of the world's best-loved classical themes. To order, call now. This outstanding collection has been digitally mastered to further enhance this definitive listening experience. The most relaxing classical album in the world ever. On 2 CDs or 2 cassettes. Call now to order yours. To order, use your credit card and call the number on your screen, or send check or money order for $22.98 for 2 cassettes, or $24.98 for 2 CDs, plus shipping and handling to the address shown. Remember, this collection is not sold in stores. Rush delivery available. Call now.